当たり前のことだけど。
Apologize for the 1000th time when I was happening to my stream. Bah.
私は、私の感情を生み出すやつが敵なのよ。
Her arm moved again. It was instantaneous. Something shot past Sojiro in the blink of an eye, missing him by just a foot to his left. Before his eyes, a blue light, something akin to a fireball, had ignited from nothing. He finally understood what was happening.
ちょっと待った。今のは大変見覚えがある。
She acknowledged him with a reaction.
外したか。
Nice aim. Falcon muttered to herself. The first I saw the blue light and made in the house of mirrors crackled and smoldered. A shot like that could have easily killed human skull in addition to burning to a crisp.
こんな射程で外すなんて、アリスに見られたら自殺者ね。でも、これで分かったでしょ。2度目だものね。あなたにとっては。
Sojiro backed away swiftly. Things were beyond incomprehensible. He was close to losing the ability to think at all. All he could make out was the light of the dependable student council president, or at least what he had thought was the president, and the memories of the park the night 2 days ago. He had never experienced anything like this. Though most people...
is now live, streaming Witch on the Holy Night, staring at the moon.
Yes. To most people living in a civilized country would have never seen anything like it either. A little weapon that could kill with nothing more than a pull of a finger had a way of suspending the ability of its target to determine between not just good and evil, but dreams and reality, past and future. And the more peaceful someone's life had been, the stronger the suspension was likely to be. All that one could think about was the fact that they were alive at the very moment. It was as if he was an unwritten character on a blank piece of white paper. There was no before, there was no after, there was only what came next. This was a very common thought process for everyone starting out to the barrel of a gun.
命乞いはやめてね。意味ないから。でも、恨み事ならご自由に。殺す側の義務として一言一句聞いてあげる。
How cautious of her. But saying it was pointless. She made it sound more like she would not listen to what he had to say. However, Sojiro was in such a state of shock that it didn't even enter his mind to speak up. All he knew, for a reason or no, was the girl in front of him wanted him dead.
嘘つきに程がある。飛び丸のバカ、何がそんな生き物はいないだ。実際いるじゃないか、こんなお化けみたいなのが。
Sojiro felt if he had said that loud, the second blast would have come even quicker than the last, so he kept to himself. His mental expletives steered his mind from paralysis to mere panic. His response came from confidence, however. Someday, out of the blue, someone is going to kill me. While it may seem like a beastly belief to hold,
でもそうだった。都会には殺人事件がある。ルールを破れば殺されるのは当たり前だってちゃんと教えてもらってた。
Sojiro, the situation seemed to perfectly align with his experience and understand that the city was called the pragmatic place. As far as he was concerned in this moment, being killed by a classmate was not something to be surprised by. In a society where murder was possible, he was able to accept this sort of situation as natural, or virtually no concern. Was the series of events that led to all aggression towards him. The only thing that truly confused him was Aoko's blues fireball. Sojiro swallowed with an audible gulp. To anyone who may have been watching, it was the response of a victim paralyzed by fear.
そういうことよ。ようやく理解してくれたわね。多くは語らないけど、あなたにはここで死んでもらう。魔術は隠匿するものなんて言っても、そっちには関係のないことだし、単に運がなかったって思えばいいわ。大事なのは私があなたを殺したってことだけだから。
Done talking, Oko once again lifted her right arm. There was a hum like a machine. Blue light began to revolve about her arm beneath her sleeves. It was taking longer than the last time, leading Sojiro to believe that he was going to be much stronger than the attack that was still scorching the wall behind him. The realization caused him to panic to heighten.
いやなんだ、つまり始末するとかしないとか、あの夜のお化けは青崎だったとか、都会は本当に込み入ってるとか、そういうことじゃなくて。
He knows about the church? His thoughts began jumbled. His heart pounded like a hammer. This was no time to be standing still. He was not sure if the girl in front of him was really human, and more importantly, if he could accept the event unfolding before him, when all was said and done.
待て、人殺しはいけないんだぞ。
Even if it was a fact of life in the city, Sojiro was not about to lie down and die.
分かってるわよ、そんなことは。
Sojiro's scream, still entirely obvious, was just a thing to invoke Aoko's full wrath. Aoko fired a barrage of blue magical bullets. In an instant, Sojiro dashed into the shadow behind him, into the entrance to the House of Mirrors, where she wanted him to be.
なんだい今のなんだ
He darted purposely down the hall. After a mere few feet, he was left completely out of breath. He was due to the shock of seeing yet another attack, worse than the first, than he would never seen in his life, and because he couldn't shake the thought that he had to move even a second later, he would be dead. He could not afford to stop. The sound of Mercy's left footstep closing behind him.
けど助かったここならなんとか
He threw everything into his leg as he sprinted. A straight and narrow passage about 60 feet long connected the entrance to the main lobby. At this rate, he could just make it to the lobby. He was sure he would be able to find as many hiding spots as he needed.
助かった
He arrived in a large open space. This was the first floor lobby. There were 3 passageways. One led to the basement floor, one connected to the first floor maze, the other was a set of stairs leading to the second floor. Sojiro did not particularly care which one he chose, so, trusting his intuition, he made a run for the first floor maze when he smacked his head into a transparent wall.
鏡
ええ、面倒だけどそれならフェアでしょ。追いかける方にも逃げる方にも有利不利がある。
A somehow cheerful voice echoed in this direction. There was no need for Sojiro to even turn around. In the very same mirror, he had crashed into the cold sea Aoko Otsaki figure slowly approaching.
それと1階の奥にある出口は封鎖しといたから。結界じゃなくて物理的に。 やりすぎて封鎖っていうより瓦礫？土砂崩れ？どっちでもいっか。とにかく下手に出口に近づくと崩落に巻き込まれるから。生き埋めが嫌なら近寄らないことね。
Panicked by the impending footstep, Sojiro groped for the wall. He could see the stairs to the second floor. He did not understand what Aoko had meant earlier, but he at least knew that the first floor was not going to save him.
ま、私としてはそっちのが助かるけど。形式上、事故死の方が後始末とか楽だから。
Behind him was a creature beyond words. As she continued her idle taunting, She lifted her right arm ostentatiously. Even from above her clothes, I could see some kind of strange, incongruous pattern upon her body. The veins beneath her skin. They made it seem as though something inhuman was circulating her body. Whether out of pity or repulsion, Sturgis stopped for just a moment. His pursuer evaded his gaze.
ああ、これ普段は塗り薬で隠しているんだけど、今日は特別。魔術刻印って言ってね、魔術師の証みたいなものよ。ほら、光が回ってるでしょ。これがさっきのスナップ。わかりやすく言うと弾丸の元。今日は調子いいし、私魔力を効率よく使うのだけは自信あるし、あと30回ぐらいかな、さっきみたいな装着ができるのは。
Perhaps she was on an emotional high, for her voice had become frightfully friendly. The substance of the conversation could not have been any more unsettling, however.
そもそも何を言っているかよくわからないんだけど、青崎。
わからない？段数はあと30発ってこと。そこまで逃げ切ればあなたの勝ちよ。とりあえず今日のところはね。
今日はって明日もあるのかな。
Sojiro knit his brows. Our expression increased into a scowl at his behavior. Although he was panicking, it seemed that deep down he still did not feel the full weight of the crisis. She knew he still didn't get it.
宣言はしたわ。自由時間はこれでおしまい。まだ罵り足りないだろうけど、その手の時間はキリがないしね。この辺りで諦めて。
It appeared Hawk had prepared this theatrical dialogue ahead of time. Not to allow her opponent time to futile pleading, but to give him the time to curse her, his killer. Such forthrightness was her modus operandi. With his victim, however, he was not going to she had opened.
とにかくそういうことだから。じゃ、狩りの時間と行きましょうか。
Her voice was void of emotion, and her eyes ruthless as they bored into her prey. This time, Sojiro finally accepted he was going to die. Silent as the dead, we step into the remnant of the dream that the long since have seen no visitors. There is no wind this night, nor a soul to be seen. Still it heard the echoes from within, clasping hands together, and grinned. His form, with hand clasped, resembled that of a budding tulip. The bearing of this artificial flower reflected the cloudy mirror of the ticket attendant's office next to the gate. Next to it stood a display board, corroded by years upon years of rust. Number of visitor today. The board had graffiti crudely scrawled atop one of the words. It was replaced with death. The record boards had long ago fallen to disrepair. After taking a full 10 seconds to digest what he was looking at, he made its own revision. Number of visitors today 3. Number of today's day to death today 1. After appending this number with her index finger, she smiled like a flower. Then she began to walk toward the source of the sounds. It has been 10 minutes since the rhapsody had begun to echo from the House of Mirrors. The amusement park entrance returned to as it was before, soulless. In the end, if Soldier had been the luckiest man alive, there was no way he should have been able to escape. The question, however, was how much of this was by design, and how much was sheer coincidence. Even Aoko, who made all the arrangement, had no answer. Indeed, there were only 3 things she could say. It was taking longer than expected. It was putting up more of resistance than she had anticipated. And then choosing the House of Mirror was a mistake. She really screwed the pouch on this one. The location itself was an excellent choice, as the House of Mirror was perfect as a hunting ground, but seeing her own incompetence reflect in the mirror was beginning to grate on her. The moment Aoko's right arm began to glow, Sojiro made a bane line in the staircase in front of line. A striking series of blue flashes in the room behind him. The hunter calmly followed her prey, and the prey desperately ran for his life up the stairs.
注文通り。
Cool reload animation.
そうでなくっちゃお膳立てした甲斐がない。
In stark contrast to Sojiro Francis' escape, Aoko walked briskly up the stairs. She learned not to run after her prey in order to maintain a safe distance. And she lacked confidence in her accuracy. The hardest things for her to deal with would be if you charged right at her and went down fighting. But at a distance of 30 or so feet, he posed no threat. By the time her prey drew near, she could fire 10 shots and hit with at least 4 of them. Their positioning just a moment ago hadn't been ideal. At that distance, in a space then open, if he flanked and rushed her, there was a chance, however small, that it could turn into a fist fight. Currently, Ako's best weapon was the bullet from her right hand. She was going to capitalize on that advantage. It was in her best interest not to close the gap between them. If there was a good time to approach, it was only after Prey had become exhausted and lost the will to continue. Would she pierce his leg, shooting him in the back? Or perhaps would he just give up after losing himself in the labyrinth? The hunt will end when their target sustains some sort of injury and become unable to run. On Sojiro's end, he could apparently bite back on screaming as he bolted her through the maze. Even running in a straight line had become difficult, much less searching for an exit. The corridor stretched out before him, also the mares blocking the path had made it seems. Panicked, he made a turn to the right. Clutching his head in his right arm, Sojiro led with his left, groping through the air to see whatever a wall was there or not. He dove down a hole to the left, narrowly dodging the bullet targeting his life. Urged by the sound of approaching footsteps, he ran without thinking. The last one was close. However close would have meant his life. He caught the odor of burnt hair from the back of his neck. He was very lucky. Or perhaps very unlucky. If he were actually lucky, he would not be in this situation in the first place. The second floor of the House of Mirrors was structured like a giant spiral. One left stating from the outside one. Eventually it will lead to a dead end. The more he tried to escape, the more cornered he will become, as though he were tapping twisted guillotine. His stifled scream threatened to leak out as complaints. No matter what he did, he was going to be killed. All of his struggle merely served to prolong the inevitable. Yet he ran. No matter how many mirror walls he ran himself into, he ran. Even after crashing so hard that his forehead bled and he saw stars, he ran. Pain shoot him at every turn. The more frenetically he ran, the more intensely he smashed into the invisible walls. His body began to understand this rule and begged him not to run anymore. His breath was already ragged after sprinting about a couple hundred feet. No matter how he thought about it, he was not normal. He was way too crazy. He was just a bad joke. He turned around now, She will apologize to him for taking too far. His mind has gone blank, as his body continued to slam him into the mirrors again and again. His feet stove as they began to believe that perhaps it really was all joke. But then... he felt a chill, a touch of death upon his neck. It will not be an exaggeration to say that Sojiro knew this kind of terrible chill far too well. Ever since he had arrived in the city, they come face to face with more than one of two near-death experiences. For someone who did not understand city life, his present predicament was not unlike when he experienced the traffic on the streets or the commuter rush on the station platform. He was far from an innocent babe unable to comprehend life or fear. Rather, everything he had ever known became irrelevant when he was flung into a completely different cultural sphere. Even society's promise of safety, something urbanites took for granted, were threats unknown. Though, however, to be honest, he was dissatisfied with some things. Things superfluous to necessity. The world was overflowing with various things, and they were all dangerous in some way. Even the everyday necessities sold at the convenience store were, as far as he was concerned, amazing tools. Civilization had raised the standard of living so high that he had none but humanity's sense of danger. The city constant pursuit of wealth and convenience was a poison to a country boy like Sojiro. He did not have the capacity to accept these conveniences. It was possible for such conveniences to easily and suddenly be misused, and cause an unintended accident, and always made him anxious. Why? He had to wonder why he was even here. How ironic. It took the real threat of death to finally make him realize, like a divine revelation, what he had failed to understand until now. He always had to expect the unexpected. Near-death experiences were more common than one might think. To begin with, safety was something that came at a price. Being alive meant that the opposite was always lurking around the corner. It was just like a street light at night. When the sun rose, its illumination would naturally disappear. Another barrage of strange projectiles whizzed mercilessly by him. He recalled in the back of his mind the charred remains of someone in the hands of the blue flame 2 nights prior. Somehow the situation reminded him of a horse being led by a dangling carrot. For now he lifted his head and continued to run through the labyrinth. But for what purpose? Though he knew the pain in his chest was very real, he felt disconnected from it. The night sky visible through the skylight was a moody ultramarine, no longer resembling the one he knew. He managed to calm himself. Sojiro began to laugh in despair, as though something rather precious had been broken. Everything had become meaningless anyway. Even so, his legs somehow made their way forward at the sight of a reflection in the mirror. Like a game of cat and mouse, Sojiro fled through the labyrinth of mirrors. Then, after 4 minutes, a strangely unreal tension ended. The net shot a blue light in inches away from him. It exploded the moment he made impact, launching Sojiro into the opposite wall. Of all the fire he had taken thus far, his shot indisputably brought him the closest to death. He was not bleeding, it was like he could still even scream. Yet, his body refuses to move. Physically and mentally, he still had something to spare. The pain was not bad, that it was preventing him to stand up. It was just that there was a skylight above him, that he could glimpse the dark of the night sky beyond. The feeling that overcame him was a raw, selfish bout of grief. It was just so cruel to have to stare at that for the remainder of whatever short life he had left. Sojiro Rag breath slowed. For all intent and purposes, he had given up. He had given up running away from the sound of pursuing footsteps, and perhaps even the problem at the root of everything.
まあ、青崎に殺されるならいいかな。
Sojiro Suzuki felt things that in any other circumstance he will never feel. Incidentally, without exaggeration or embellishment, this was the only mistake he had ever made in his entire life. Staring vacantly in the night sky above, Sojiro listened as the footsteps drew nearer.
Give up?
It was the closest her voice had ever been to him. Perhaps feeling that he really had given up, she approached his collapsed form. In the dark mirror-lined corridor, he could not make out her expression. Without a word, Sojiro raised his eyes to meet his murderer.
返事がないならそれでいいけど。調子狂うわ。普通どうして殺そうとするのかぐらい聞くものじゃない？
Aoka spoke from within the shadow, eyes widening in bewilderment. Now that she had mentioned it, he realized it would have been the obvious question to ask. He had more or less picked up on the fact he has been killed for learning some secret, but it was human nature to want to know more.
そっか。それは、そうなるな。
A simple affirmation. His face was a mixture of resignation and a forlorn longing. He thought for a moment before.
でも言う必要はない。聞きたくないんだ。そういうのは。
He responded in a mature, subdued voice. His response was clear rather violently so.
そう。じゃ、殺すけど。死ぬの怖くないの？
怖いに決まってる。何より痛そうだ。
His filter awry as he objected, to which Alka frowned. As nonchalant she could be, he was honest about his feelings.
そりゃ怖いでしょ。私だって怖いと思うし。でも悪いわね。我慢して。人でなしと罵ってくれて結構よ。今の私は本当にその通りだから。そういった意味じゃあんたと同じ。普通の道徳がないのよ。だから必要なら人も殺せる。
Sojiro's finger twitched in response to her indifferent tone. As if to say that, despite having given up on just about everything, his body could not let those words slide.
人殺しなんて良くないぞ。
分かってるって言ってるでしょ。
Alko raised her right hand. The light from the grass illuminated her face. It goes without saying that her expression was unchanged. She was not crying, nor was she smiling. She was a young woman with the exercises for her feeling. Deal with it was another thing Sojiro could not let slide. Sojiro could read on Ako's face that she was not herself. She was in pain, and to a degree he had never seen in her.
すまない。ちょっといいかな。
何？ ここまで悲壮感を盛り上げておいて、やっぱり逃げるなんてのは却下よ。
He unconsciously smiled at Aoko's ruthless counter and breathed a sigh of relief. He had misread the pain he saw in their face. It was the same Aoko.
遺言でも聞いてあげようと思った私が甘かった。っていうか、今の小バカにした笑いがあんたの遺言ってことで OK？
いや、そうじゃなくて、あそこにいる人は青崎の友人なのか？
Out of nowhere, Soichiro pointed behind Aoko.
はあ？
Aoko thought that it must have been that old, overused distraction technique. If this had been a Japanese comedy act, it was be the part where she gave him a whack with a paper fan. But after giving up in a second thought, she realized Sojiro didn't have the capacity for understanding old or even new tricks.
あんた何言って。
Perhaps his honest disposition had been to his benefit. Without thinking, Aoko gave in to her curiosity and turned her gaze toward the direction in which his finger was pointed. And there, something should not have been there in the maze, something with a creaking wooden smile. It was the ominous, creepy, uncanny figure of a girl. Or a mannequin. An unusual figure with 2 arms and 2 legs stood silently in the darkness. If only for a moment, its beauty, which was even apparent from afar, dulled the insanity of the current situation. Extend, extend, extend. The utterly unknown threat made Aoko freeze on the spot. Avoiding it didn't even occur to her. Human possess intelligence and knowledge, but when confronted with the unknown, they fail to process what to do, and time for the rescue. Sojiro, you missed your moment. A shriek escaped Aoko's mouth. The magical attack crossed the 30-foot gap in an instant. The arm of the girl, who appeared at the rear of the corridor, was slender and quick. It extended a near impossible length, striking Aoko from behind. Aoko crashed into the wall as she fell back, an anguished whimper. The attacker retracted her arm. Sojiro sprang to his feet. In order to recite the unusual straight he could muster to get her to her feet. He could not believe how light she was. In Sojiro's mind, Aoko was an extraordinary individual. He would expect that if he were to ever touch her, it would be apparent she was far stronger than he. But in reality, she felt about as heavy as you would expect a 100-pound girl to feel. Meanwhile, that thing continued to reel in its arm, as if it were some sort of mechanism. Having extended more than 30 feet from the elbow joint, it cracked as it returned to its previous shape and size.
大丈夫か？
やめてよ。わからないわ。なんでそんな顔できるの？
Aoko tore her hand away from Sojiro's. Suddenly she felt her knees buckle from under her, but Sojiro caught her before she could hit the ground and help her to her feet.
無理するな。で、あいつは知り合いか？
He looked back at the eerie shadow 30 feet away as it finished retracting its arm.
そうね。似たようなやつとは命をせめぎ合ったのかよ。
Aoko grabbed her lower back as she answered. A searing pain shot through her.
でも痛いっちゃ痛いけど、打撲だけ。あれだけ絶好の奇襲をしておいて、それともこの距離じゃ当たっても致命傷にならない？なんてあるわけないか。何か別の意味があると見るべき。
Aoko tried to steady her breathing as she assessed the damage to their back. The pain was quick to fade, and their breathing returned to normal. For the time being, their motor functions were no longer hindered, which meant the real damage was elsewhere.
青崎、あれ。
分かってるわ。黙ってて。
Blue light glowed across the gloom. The magical energy generated by her breathing was accumulating in her right arm. If magical logic was the fuel, the formula was the igniter. For Aoko, it was little more than a reenactment of 2 evenings ago. Next time the puppet extended his arm, Aoko would fire a magic bullet as fast as she could. A battle at approximately 30 feet. As long as Aoko could secure a 2-second window, she could create a counter-attack to end their duel. It made its move. With his head tilted down, there was no expression to be seen, and in the darkness, the pale edge was impossible to make out. To the two humans, the puppet was not dissimilar to a faceless ghost. His left arm slowly came up with a grinding sound. His movements were dull, as if the joints were rusty. The right arm, which had been extended earlier, hung at its side. Though the puppet mouth was hidden by its long locks, the sense was that he was smiling.
さっきと用途が違う。あれが本音。しずき君、どいて。
She threw herself into Sojiro and extended her hand. In arm extended at the very moment. The timing was impeccable. In a single second, Oka's magic bullet scored a direct hit on the puppet's arm, reversing its trajectory and sending it crashing into the puppet's body with a violent explosion. Or at least, that is what would have happened had the magic formula been invoked. She consumed everything on Sojiro. She barely avoided being struck once again. When her magecraft failed her, intuition took over, and she just managed to get away.
やられた。最初のはそういうことか。
She clenched her teeth in frustration, her thoughts racing a mile a minute. Fight or flight? If only I had one arm left, which one would take time to retract? This was the best shot Oka at defeating it. If she could evade the right arm just a fraction, she could get close enough to...
Vivo in sum, solitare putresque inferis. Ictius meus obitus dies, et meus nativus dies, Theobeam.
Latin. A crackle echoed through the corridor. The poetic murmurs contain enough magical energy for a mage to perceive. The verse itself was Latin, but it contained hints of the language of curses, Gandr. Originally, they were words meant to curse a hated adversary. Wasn't Gandr the spell Rini used? His favorite spell, the one she specialized on?
Mea animae mortalis, otem eftura negata sunt. Manis sum, animam definire ambiguum est. Theodi et am, conveniamus insomnio ipsi.
The puppet was directing the words at itself. Curses beget curses. The victim calls down a curse on the assailant, creating a vicious cycle of negativity. The incantation was meant to do just that. However, it was ultimately a puppet show. An unprecedented source of power akin to auto-intoxication. As unbelievable as it seemed, the cycle of curses had been turned into a perpetual motion device.
何それ、レベル高すぎじゃない。
Alka abandoned the idea of digging her heels. It was time to flee with all due haste.
何してんの、あんたも来る。
She grabbed Sojira's hand and ran fast as she could, deeper into the realm of mirrors. And then I will finish it for today. See you next time for the sequel of the battle. Bye bye.